Workshop meeting to order, and we'll have the secretary call the roll. Here. Present. Here. All right, thank you. Okay, for this workshop, we are not doing any public comments for the workshop. This is just a one-item topic for this workshop, so we're going to go right into discussion. The discussion for today is to discuss the proposed Village of Salado fiscal year 2026-2027 budget. So with that, we will get into the discussion, and I will there'll probably be a lot of comments as we go through this. I will make a statement here. As we go through this, both Alderman Lassiter and Alderman Dunch played a big role in our finance committee work that we did in going through and getting the budget prepared. So I expect as we go through this, we should be able to have good discussion because a lot of us here are up to speed with what has been initially the draft of the budget, John. So I will encourage a lot of conversation and feedback as we go through the discussion. So with that, I will, John, turn it over to you to begin the walkthrough of the proposed budget.
All right. Thank you, Mayor. The budget that I handed out to you is not the final proposed budget by any means. This is a work in progress draft budget with the emphasis on the word draft. The process of getting to this point has included meeting with each of you individually to identify your priorities as elected officials. I would say the majority of your priorities are included in this budget, identified in one way or the other. Not necessarily. With that said, not all of those priorities are funded in this budget, but they are, I believe, in that. So that was a guideline as this budget was prepared. Also, one of the steps that has preceded today's meeting was submittal of budget requests from each department head. I'd like to commend each of them on a job. They did an excellent job with their proposed budgets to address the need, not just the desires or the wants, but particularly the needs within their respective departments. The next step was we have prepared revenue projections for the next fiscal year. That at this stage of the process, that is a challenge based on sales tax projections, but also property tax projections. We just received that information on Monday, so that was one of the most recent changes in the budget, and I'll come back to that here in a moment. And then, as you mentioned, Mayor, the Finance Committee, which consists of yourself, Alderman Lassiter, Alderman Dunch, myself, and Christy Segman, our financial accountant, have been meeting and going through the various funds on this. That committee's work is not done. We haven't got through all of the different funds yet, but have gotten through the general fund, the hot fund, and the INS budget for our debt for next year. But we still need to go through, that committee needs to go through the wastewater fund and the 5-year capital project, or capital improvement program, rather. With that said, let me give an overview of each of the budget. The total appropriations for the entire budget for all funds is $4,538,156 for next fiscal year. That is a cumulative total from the general funds requested appropriation of $2,737,800. The hot fund or tourism request of $419,300, and the wastewater of $513,850, and the debt service of $927,206. The general fund estimated revenue, as I meant, is in comparison to the appropriation or expenditure request, is $2,993,300. That's an 11.67% increase over our current fiscal year budget, and that's primarily due to the projected 21% increase in sales tax revenues for next year, which equate to an estimated $211,000. That $211,000 is the majority of that is anticipated to be increased revenues from the Salado Center project, where Quick Trip, Starbucks, Taco Bell, that area, we are currently receiving as of July 1, receiving those sales tax revenues, and so we've estimated for the next year, starting October 1, an increase. A portion of that $211,000 sales tax increase will come from that project. The remaining amount will be from, we're just seeing a trend, increasing trend on our sales tax revenue, and that's what makes up the increased projection. The results of that, we estimate we will add be able to add an estimated $255,000 to the fund balance in the general fund at the end of fiscal year 27. The budget includes a proposed 4% cost of living increase for all full-time and part-time employees that would take effect on October 1st. The 4%, we came to that proposed 4% based on Social Security projections that the cost of living will increase between 3.7 to 3.8%, and so we rounded up to 4% on that. That equates to a $48,164 cost increase in the budget. The budget does not include increases or decreases to any current staffing levels. And now going further back to the general fund, the reduced total number of departments, there is a reduced total number of departments in the budget, not in our services, but we've combined the the administrative services department with the administration department. The administrative services department was a one-person department, and it just made sense to combine that into the administration department. So if somebody may notice there's less departments, and that's why. The flip side of that is the administration department budget amount has increased because of bringing those expenditures into that budget, or in part because of that. Projected increased revenue in the development services department. We plan to update this village's fee ordinance to reflect market rate adjustments as well as cost recovery. That number has been increased in the budget that you have in front of you as recently since that occurred late yesterday afternoon. Excuse me. That the number that's in there currently reflects market rate adjustments in comparison to surrounding communities. There's a caveat to that. We still need to look at that projected market rate adjustment in context to our cost recovery. We haven't done that exercise yet, so that number may increase or decrease based on our cost recovery of our expenses. Projected increased revenue, increased funding is also proposed for this, the village's website. Our support, who we contract with to provide our website, they will no longer support our current version of our website, and so we need to update that. We also need to make sure, update certain parts of it to ensure that it's ADA compliant. And that's a $20,000 expense. Street maintenance, increased street maintenance is also included in the budget. $100,000 for in the capital line item for street maintenance funding, and then also we are proposing increased funding for pothole repair. The additional amount of funding will double the number of pallets that the city purchases to fix potholes. So we'll be able to do much more pothole repairs than what we're currently able to do this year. We're also proposing in the budget $20,000 for drainage maintenance. That's a new line item. the village does not, in current budget, has not budgeted for drainage maintenance. Moving to the hot fund budget, one of the line items, and this is partially a reformatting, but also some increased funding for increased funding for community grants and events. It is currently proposed $59,700. That number derives from $10,000 for the Salado Museum and College Park, which is the village's annual commitment for that agreement. And then an additional $11,450 from historical restoration and preservation. Under that category, as you learned Monday night during the hot fund training, we could go up, the village can go up to 15% of our total revenue, annual revenues for historical restoration, and preservation. That $11,450 is when we subtract out other parts of that come out of that category, that's the remaining amount is the $11,450. So that is proposed to be moved into or budgeted in the community grants and events. Also, promotion of arts, which also is an additional 15%. Maximum allowed allocation is proposed at $38,250. And that brings just under $60,000 for next year for funding of community events within the village. Also in the hot fund budget is proposed $60,000 for construction of the downtown visitors information building. That is proposed on the north end of Main Street. Lastly, the requested expenditures in the hot fund exceed the projected revenues, and as a result, the expenditures in the hot fund budget utilize a portion of the existing accumulated hot fund cash balance of approximately $159,000, as I recall. Moving to the wastewater fund, the wastewater fund is projected to see a 16% increase in revenues due to new home construction, and we're also proposing in that budget to fund a utility rate study at an estimated cost of $25,000. It's been a number of years since the city has undertaken that cost, and part of that will help us with cost recovery through the utility fund, as well as making sure we're allocating or budgeting correctly for not just our maintenance and operation, but for future capital improvements on the wastewater system. The debt service fund, which is funded by a portion of the property tax, the INS property tax portion. This total of semi-annual principal and interest payments due for next fiscal year is $922,981. Those relate to the 2000, or will help continue to pay for the 2022 bond for the wastewater facility and the 2025 tax note for road improvements related to Williams, Royal Street, and West Village Road. The capital improvement program is the final portion of the budget. It includes the funding request for the following projects. Wastewater treatment plant expansion, which is funded by the EPA grant that the village previously obtained. We're proposing, and we don't know the exact amount. We know it will start, or we're anticipating it to start next year. Out of the $1 million grant, we're just splitting that $500,000 next year and $500,000 in fiscal year 28. It may differ on that slightly, but we are proposing that project, or anticipating that project to get underway. Roadway project funding, again, these are through grants and the tax note issuance. The Royal Street improvement project and the West Village Road improvement project, both will be started next year under this budget. Also, funding for strategic long-range planning, that's a broad term that would include update to the village's comprehensive plan, undertaking a wastewater master plan, and updating the village's park and rec master plan. Then under the Parks Department, for capital improvements, proposed funding for the Pace Park, rehabbing of the Pace Park storage building, that we have issues with mold, significant mold issues, and it's in disrepair. We need to deal with that. And then, as Gina will be talking next Thursday, providing an update on this upcoming project to install streetlights along Pace Park Road. We don't know that cost right now. That's in the budget. We're still currently waiting to receive. Gina's been working with Encore to get that estimate, and as soon as we get that, we'll plug that into the budget. We're actually hoping that we might be able to fund that out of this year's budget, but we've put it in the capital budget for next year just in case this year's fiscal year budget cannot accommodate that cost. The Public Works Department is requesting purchase of a tractor as well as an additional trailer for their work within the community. That actually is both public works on streets, but also benefit parks, the Parks Department. We're also proposing the purchase of agenda management software for our city secretary's office, and that will greatly reduce the amount of paper we use and send out. Also, it will help streamline and make us more efficient internally, operational wise. We've budgeted $20,000 on that. Kathy is still working through estimates on that. We're hoping that is a high number that we can get a look. Won't be significantly lower than that, but we're hoping it can be a little bit lower than that. A portion of that cost, we feel we can recover. We'll be able to recover over time a portion of that through our permit fees as a cost allocation recovery as well. So. Also, as I mentioned, the Downtown Visitors Information Building, as I spoke about in the hot fund budget, and then crosswalk pedestrian signs on Main Street. Not so much the signage, because there's crosswalks now with some signage, but to add the flashing lights that Alderman Rufo and I discussed. That's unfunded right now in the budget. We need to have conversations with TxDOT to see if we can obtain funding, partner with them for some of that funding, or hopefully all of that funding, or through potentially through K-Tempo. We may have fun. I don't know if they have funding, but otherwise we don't have cost estimates on that just yet, but we'll be working on that. And then we've left it in the capital budget. It's not really technically a capital project, but murals in the downtown area. That is an ongoing project. We don't anticipate that to impact our village budget, but there may be some minor associated costs with that. So, as I said at the beginning, this is no action is being requested tonight, or today rather. This is just distributing the budget, and as I mentioned, it's very much a work in progress. With that said, I do next Thursday, at your regular Board of Aldermen meeting, one of the agenda items will be asking the board to establish a proposed ad valorem tax levy for the village going into next year. It's not the final adoption. It's just established what you can't. Once that's set, you can go lower. We can't go higher on the final budget, final adopted levy. In the handout on the budget on I apologize, it's about page 10. There is information that Christy has put together on the tax rate. The information we received this past Monday from Bell County, our total taxable value in the village for next year is $509,688,315. That's an increase from $438,554,918 that it was this year. She lists out, there's 4 options, ideally, well, four rates. There's no new revenue rate. Our current levy is 0.4231 per $100 of assessed value. The no new revenue rate would leave our revenues flat and would lower our levy, proposed levy for next year to 0.3709 per hundred. So a decrease of about a little over 6 cents per hundred. The voter approval rate is a little bit higher than that as an option. That would, again, lower the village's tax levy to 0.3797 per hundred. And then our current levy is 0.4231 per hundred, as I mentioned. That would provide us the highest rate. That would, or the third highest amount of revenue of these options. That would require, to stay at that levy, amount of levy, would, I believe, require voter approval. We'd have to put that on the ballot. And then the de minimis rate, which would take it to 0.4710 per hundred, would generate the most revenue. You could adopt that. It does open us up for petition of similar to what happened a few years ago, a year or two ago, with the village. That would if there's a petition, it would have to go on the ballot as well. So again, no actions needed. That this sheet is in addition to the whole budget. We wanted to get this out to the board in advance of next Thursday's meeting, so you'll have time to look at the budget, look at these tax rates in context to the budget at this point, and then you'll be asked next Thursday to establish a proposed property tax levy for next year. Then we'll hold a public hearing in September on, and then we'll make that final decision in September.
But the prior year and the de minimis one would both require, like, those two, if we choose those, would obviously, I know the de minimis one, but you're saying prior year would still require voter approval.
That's my understanding, when I've seen these numbers, I need to confirm that, but I believe that's right. So, but it is lower than de minimis, so I may be wrong on that.
And we have till next Thursday to decide this?
We need to keep, there's a budget schedule. The budget has to be adopted prior to October 1st, or by the end of September, on the calendar. And we're proposing right now on the budget calendar that would come on September 17th at the board's regular meeting. With that said, and we have to do a 30-day notice for the public hearing notice, so to keep it on September 17th, that's August 6th, by the time we get it to the paper and to meet that deadline. You could hold a special meeting and then make that decision after the 6th, but it would have to be within that same, or within a week of the 6th.
So I know, Rick, for your benefit, because you're not ready, but what we talked about as our committee that is looking at this, if we do this and send it to a voter, what I think is important that we do is, if you were to agree to this rate, these are the additional things you're going to get next year. If you don't, then these things are out.
Right.
And to me, we're running under a short time to kind of figure that out. But I'm not personally against throwing it out to our constituents to decide and vote on whether they want X, Y, and Z, versus, when they come back and say, why are the potholes the way they are? Well, there's a reason. Right. You chose and you voted not to do that. I mean, we did this last year. I think, in the previous administrations, it was clearly, the petition went out, it was denied. I think this time, what's lessons learned, I think we'd be far better off of saying, we're doing this, but here's why, and this is what you're going to get as a result. Right. That's a much different message. And if they decide to turn it down, they turn it down. But I'm not against putting something out for voters to decide. Right. That makes sense. So, yeah. Obviously, we have more work as to what those things are that we're going to get if you agree to this rate. Correct.
Yeah, John, just to clarify a little bit, so I make sure I understand what you're saying there about what's voter approved, what's not voter approved, or can be recalled through a petition. So you're saying the prior year rate that was approved, I assume by the voters, at some point, the 0.4231, because that's the prior year rate. So the public and the board had to approve that, correct?
That's correct.
Well,
I
yes
don't
and
know
no,
that it
because we
relates
put,
to that actually. I don't know that it relates directly to that levy amount. I think there's another part of that calculation.
well, I mean, that's partly correct, but then we did the tax note, which, right, wrong, and different, we made the decision to do that tax note to save $8 million worth of grant money. Our taxpayers weren't able to vote on that, so.
Yeah, you're right.
So this is where they're getting the opportunity now to keep it back, wheel that back in and cut other areas.
Yeah,
By keeping it to no new revenue rate.
right. The no new revenue rate would be so under the property tax there's maintenance and operation, or M&O, and then there's the INS. The INS is our debt levy, and as you'll notice on all four of those options, that INS amount, that levy rate for the INS is flat at 0.1810. The M&O is what fluctuates under each of these. The no new revenue rate would lower the levy to 0.1899 for M&O. The voter approved rate, which is 0.1987, so that's the voter approved. On the prior year, our current year rate, the M&O is at 0.2421. So it's still higher than the 0.1987, but I need to get with Christie on that to get clarification.
All right, that makes sense. So then what the voters had originally approved was the 0.1987.
Yeah, we're looking at the M&O rate is the one that fluctuates there.
Right. So in theory, I guess my question is then, if you say the voter approved the 0.1987, theoretically, how did last year, how did we get to a 0.24?
That's what I'm not sure. I need to have to ask Christie on that. I apologize, I didn't pick up on that.
Okay.
In advance of this meeting.
So that'd be before we get into next week. That'd be helpful to understand.
Yeah.
How did we get from there to there? Because in my mind, I'm thinking, well, it should still be 0.1987. So there's something that changed that we need to inform ourselves on. But basically what you're laying out here for the rest of the board is in either of these four rates can be established by the board going into next year's budget. In other words,
correct.
We can do the no new revenue rate. We can stay with the voter approved rate. Because the debt service doesn't change with the debt that we went into on the INS, so I'm going to be flat all over it. And then getting a better understanding of the prior year rate, how we got to that. And then under state law, we can go with the de minimis rate without first going for a voter approval, but then voters can come back through petition and reject that.
That's correct. That's correct.
Okay. So for us, I think as a board here, as we get into the budget, and I like the way Neil stated there. When the three of us, Neil and Alderman Lassiter and myself, as we were talking about this with John and Christie, the accountant, we kind of said we should probably develop scenarios that say, if we look at what we think, understanding the village priorities, and you're not going to fulfill all priorities in 1 year, but in thinking about the needs, here's what could be funded, but if you try to fund those, then you're going to have to consider a different tax rate.
Right.
Or one of these other rates, other than the ones that we currently have today.
Yep.
If we don't, and then trying to get feedback from the public and whether they prefer to have some of these things or not, then that'll help guide us, I think, to where we ultimately land on the proposed tax rate. And John, to your point, that has to be accomplished next Thursday, correct? In order to establish
on the budget schedule we currently have to get it through using the regular meetings of the board to have it adopted by the on September 17th. We can go past 17th with a special meeting if need be. And then that would allow to push not make a decision next Thursday instead within the following week at some point.
So that gives us all something to think about, and as we go into next week, so I have to think about that. So this is on the tax rate. Maybe I want to look to see if anybody else has any thoughts about just the tax rate. Last do you have any thoughts on that?
No. So I think in the committee meeting, we got around pretty thoroughly, and I understand it. Excuse me. I don't have any additional thoughts or comments at this time on that. I think it's been fairly stated already by you and Neil. Thank you.
So we're basically looking at the difference between 1.900,000 to 2.400,000, so roughly about $500,000 difference in these tax rates. Okay. So with that, is there any particular, or maybe something that would be helpful to all of us, and we talked about it a little bit before, but John, maybe just, let's walk through again the timeline and what we have to accomplish over, I guess, the next month. I'm going to give you September 13th. The things that the board needs to work with the staff on in getting our budget and our tax rate in place for the coming fiscal year. So next Thursday, on the regular board meeting, the board to adopt it, and then on the January proposed property tax. That levy, once adopted, is subject to the requirement of the whole public meeting on that proposed rate. And public meeting is all legal to public meeting on the public prior to that. There is opportunity to use the levy to establish places on the timeline of the public meeting. And after that, public meeting once we know that, if we say it's value, we will know then the revenue, property tax revenue that is expected to be paid for revenue. So that is what everyone is paying. So we don't want to go do that. We put that back for having decisions to make that's one timeline. The other timeline is to adopt the budget itself. The budget has to be adopted prior to October 1st. So over the prior to adopting the budget, there's also another public hearing before we'll have to be required to hold the budget as a whole. Don't notice that public hearing has to be published on budget. So we
Revising the budget or working through the budget to where we can follow the public hearing at the board meeting or formula public that way to the well. So
That's very helpful. So obviously, you can't go past September 30th. You got to have these public meetings by September. Alderman Van Kuren has picked up a little bit. We are discussing on page 10 of the report on the budget, the long page, just looking out right there on top, on page 10, just debating and discussing the different options on the tax rate, property tax rates. So on page 10, we're just having a discussion around that and what each of these options mean, and then obviously as we think about going into next Thursday with having to set a proposed tax rate, not final, but it's a proposed rate, which I think I should you, the administrator, that action or decision is that what would be the highest rate to start to go to lower.
Correct.
But you couldn't go higher.
That's correct.
I would probably suggest to all of them, as you think about going into next week and putting some thought to that, probably makes more sense if you're thinking about wanting to be have the best opportunity to set the best budget, that you would lean a little bit to maybe being conservative. In this case, conservative is that, putting out a higher rate, knowing that you can go down.
Right.
But you can't go up. So yeah, that would probably say we ought to err on the side of putting out a higher rate for what we think we can do. And so if we do it in the public. So, comments on that?
Yeah, I would, if it's okay, I don't want to, but I'm going to put Chief Fields on the spot. If you mind coming up, because I think this is an important part of whether we stick with, the lower rate, or back to your point, whether we increase. Because when we were reviewing the budget, it is clear to me that you are running mean and lean, so to speak, in your budget. The last few Alderman meetings where you've given your reports, our P1 calls have been above the 5 minute, to where you've been wanting to adhere to. I think we were top, last one, I think it was like 6.3 minutes.
Correct.
P1. To me, we're running, the community's growing, you're seeing more and more events, you got a lot more traffic, so it's all around us. So one of the things that I think, I appreciate you being conservative and driving. My question is, if we were to go to higher rate, one of the things I think we should be considering is we've cut a lot of resources because of the financial constraints we were in, but given the growth, we need to relook at your necessary resources to handle the growth that we have in the area, the main thing. So for the committee, I wanted us all to hear directly from you whether, to me, this is one of the critical points of whether we go with the higher rate.
If you're talking about an FTE, a full-time employee, absolutely. We are at 6 right now. We do have one opening, but resources are very scarce. It's hard to find good applicants. As a matter of fact, if you go over to Central Texas College, to the police academy, They have a board that has approximately 80 flyers on it for agencies all around that are hiring. We don't look at encumbered applicants, meaning if they're in the academy and they are spoken for by Temple Police Department, we don't look at those. We look at unencumbered individuals who are putting themselves through the academy. And that it's very tight right now. It's very tight. I will also tell you that we don't have a whole lot of retirees. I will let you know we've had several individuals apply that were not going to be good fits for our agency, and we as a department would rather work short than bring a cancer, so to speak, into the village or into the building. Could we use another body? Yes, we could. Would it make us more efficient? Yes, it would. But I will let you know that those resources are scarce, and we'll have to improve in other areas as well to become more competitive, if that makes sense.
Got it. No, I mean, that's what we're doing, a market study, and we kind of budgeted for some of that in that market. We realized that inflation is here and things are more competitive. So, but no, when we had the opportunity to sit down, I mean, I was, like I said, I appreciate you being mean and lean, but there's a breaking point. And I think we're already seeing it in the P1, because I know your goal is to keep that, but if we don't add a resource, I mean, I just see the demographics changing, right? I mean, it used to be a sleepy retirement community, and then little by little, the demographics are changing. So people are more out. You're going to have a lot more patrol. We want to, also have someone that's looking at, making sure people are adhering to our ordinances. I mean, this is all resource, and you seem to be staying flat. I just don't know how that's possible. That's why I wanted to get your perspective on this. I personally feel like we need, in order to maintain the services you've been providing, additional resources for you.
Myself and Lieutenant Dunchey, the way we have our schedule set up, we will have 4 patrol officers, 1 for each of the 2 day shifts, 1 for each of the 2 night shifts. I will be the extra officer on day shift. That also means if Red Team Days takes a vacation day, I'm the day shift patrol officer. Sergeant Dunchey will be doing the same for the night shift. We have 1 officer on each of the night shifts, with Sergeant Dunchey being the float in between. If there's a night shift officer has to go to court, night shift officer needs a vacation day, gets sick, Lieutenant Dunchey will cover that shift. Then we would also be sliding Officer Oster into a Monday through Friday, 3 days as a detective, 2 days as code enforcement, and available to assist as needed in other areas. So that would be basically the 7 officers that we have now. Adding an additional officer would be able to pull myself off of that float for the daytime, or add another officer towards the nighttime when we actually have more serious calls for service. I can tell you the last couple of days I have been the day shift patrol officer. Response times are a real thing. I was going to the 285 southbound. That's literally right there. I can look out my window and see where the accident was. But in order to get to the accident, I had to go to Amity, cross over, and come back down and fight traffic all through there. So being able to look out my window and see the accident is right there, still going to take me about 7 to 8 minutes to get there. Now, there are some P1 calls for service that we can get to in less than a minute. But there are other calls that are going to extend that time frame out. For instance, we had just this weekend, Saturday, when I was working day shift, had a call for service at the 279, 280 southbound. And then immediately, while I was on that scene, had another call for service back in the sanctuary area. That's a long drive. You're not going to make that drive in 5 minutes. So while ideally, I believe we should keep that number as low as possible, I want to see it 5 or below. Working it, if I had another body that could go handle that call while I'm handling this call, yeah, we could probably do that. But there's a lot of times when there's only one of us on. So if that makes sense.
It does. I mean, I get, traffic and just congestion. There's other variables that are telling me impacting that metric. But certainly having an extra resource certainly won't hurt it.
No, I will not.
I don't have any additional questions for him. So,
I do. Is that okay? Chief, I think we talked recently, not during a session, but I guess we did, but I kind of wanted to see a graph, maybe if you could, of the last 2 years of your call volume proportionally lined up against how much you're dealing with now versus what you were 2 years ago.
I believe we added one similar to that on the last monthly briefing that Lieutenant Dungy did for me. If I remember correctly, we had 5,300 calls for service in 2023. That number went up to 6,400 in 2024. Last year, that call volume was 7,200. So annually, we're getting more calls for service. And we're doing it with about the same resources. So we're being stretched thin. I don't think we're at breaking points yet. But you also got to remember that once you get behind that 8 ball, it's hard to climb out from behind it. I do know that we did statistical data on calls for service for the first half of the year, January through June, and we are higher in our calls for service this year than we were in that same time frame since 2023. 2022, I believe, is I went back to. And I can tell you that the majority, 52.6% of all of our calls for service that we initiate a report on require some type of investigation or requires the officer to actually leave the village of Salado, meaning they have to take stuff to Waco to the crime lab. They have to take stuff to Austin to the crime lab. They have to go conduct interviews, things like that. And that is very difficult to do when you're the only officer on shift.
So if I ask you in an ideal world what it is that you really believe that you need for this coming year, would that be another police officer or would that be an administrative person? What would you choose if you had to choose that to shore up some of the deficiencies we're starting to see going forward?
That would definitely be an FTE, a full-time employee, a full-time police officer.
It would be a full-time police officer.
Yes, sir.
Okay.
I can take care of the administrative.
Yep.
That's.
Now, let me go back. When you first started, you said we have an open spot, but we have 6 officers. Has someone recently resigned? Or you confused me on that.
No, we have not filled the position from Officer Tribeau when he left and went to INS.
Okay, which puts you at 6 officers, including you.
Correct.
And the reason we haven't, we had a spot in our budget for that level of a police force, but we didn't hire in because
the 3 candidates that we had.
Yes.
During a background check, severe deficiencies were noted, and like I said, I'm not going to bring a cancer on. I'm not going to just hire somebody just because we need the body. A lot of times, especially in this line of work, if you left an agency with bad habits, I don't want you bringing them to my agency, if that makes sense. So we sat down, we as in myself and Lieutenant Dungy sat down, and we have been covering the slack. We haven't been too harsh on the officers. A little overtime here, a little overtime there, but we've been picking up the slack because we have decided that we are not going to just hire anybody. We are going to maintain our standard.
Okay. So then are you saying that there aren't good candidates out there to get, or are we not competitive enough to get them, or why can't we find somebody that meets y'all's standards?
I can tell you that I can tell you that our last trip over to Central Texas College to the CTC Police Academy, Their bulletin board has about 80 flyers from local organizations around the area that start, and again, we're not at this point, but what we are competing with are agencies that start at $70,000, $80,000 a year. We can't compete with that. And I can tell an individual in the academy, hey, come to Salado. This is what we can offer. And then he immediately looks past me to the board that says, well, Cedar Park can start me at 76. Then maybe you should go apply for Cedar Park. I want a specific type of officer here. I want an officer that, number one, wants to be here. And that's going to be good for the community. And if they're chasing money and they come here, they're going to go somewhere else. That's a fact of life, sir.
What's the delta between our starting salary and Cedar Park, or the one you just mentioned?
I believe Cedar Park, if I remember correctly, they're 68 to 70.
Okay.
And we are at, prior to what this budget looks like, we're at 59.
So with this, if this 4% was approved, you'd be at 62.5?
62.1 and some change.
62.1. But then they may also be getting an increase too from there. So
Correct.
Effectively, and Gerald would be at that level, or where?
I believe Gerald is at 66. I know Holland's at about 65, 66.
Okay. And so what you're telling me, what I'm hearing you say is you, at that price level, can't find a new candidate to come in very easily.
Correct.
And your turnover hasn't been bad, but the ones that I'm aware of that have left for money.
Correct.
Okay. So 2 years ago, when I think y'all had a $1.1 million budget, is that right? I think that was correct. That would have been 2 full years ago. And y'all had 8 or 9 officers, right?
I believe that the most we had were 9 at one time, yes.
Were we at a disadvantage on the pricing then?
Yes, sir, we were.
Okay. But what you hired ended up being people that...
What I hired ended up being officers that I worked with that retired from Belton and came down, such as Officer Gatewood.
Okay.
Officers that retired from other organizations and came here, such as Officer Bolton. Those were relationships that I had made outside of, or outside of my particular role at that time. I had been friends or supervised them previously. They retired and wanted to work for me again. So we could luck into another situation like that.
Well, luck aside, then what I'm hearing you say is you're somewhere $4,000 to $5,000 per year under market, generally speaking.
Roughly, yes.
Right now.
Yes, sir.
Does that make a big enough difference to you, in your opinion, to have a more potential for a good hire?
Again, I would say that the type of person I'm looking for is that it's not going to make a difference between the 65 and the 62.
Well, would be 65 to 60 right now, because I think we can fairly assume that, reasonably assume that they're doing their budgets too, and they'll probably get some kind of increase. So let's just stay on where we are right now. There's a $5,000 delta pretty much between where we are and where most of the others around here are. And it seems to me at least that gets you more in the ball game than you are now, because you're almost sounds like, I hate to use the analogy, a diamond in the rough.
I can tell you that there are other avenues that we can look at, and one of those being take-home police cars. Officers that would live in the county, if they were afforded the opportunity to have a take-home police car, meaning they walk out of their house, they get in their police car and they come to work, versus drive into work and then load everything into their police car. That is an option. I've worked at several agencies who had take-home police cars. It is a great benefit. And it's one that, say for instance, Officer Furden lives 2 miles away from town. What are we actually spending in fuel to send him back and forth to work? Yeah. But that's a benefit, and that's something that officers look at. Well, they have take-home cars. What's it costing me? It's costing me 2 miles worth of gas.
Just a couple more questions, and because I'm thinking this at the board level is going to need some more discussion, and I don't want to take all the time on this issue, but I do agree it's a very important one for the village, and we can take other time to question it, but am I wasting y'all's time on these questions?
Mm-hmm.
Okay. You have, you can hire someone right now if you find that person.
Correct.
Okay. And that would make you not nearly as lean if you do.
Correct.
Okay. But we have a problem where the competitiveness of our community, our pricing is really inferior. Mm-hmm. Would you say that? It's not really competitive if it's 10% lower than most other places.
I would agree with that statement.
Okay. Okay. And then there are other options. We could talk about that between now and the next budget meeting that we could consider with respect to that. My last question right now, because it doesn't matter if we can't hire them because we're not paying enough, but how much, if you were to hire, let's just say, a new officer, not the one that we have in our budget that you haven't filled, but how much does a new officer all in cost these days at market rate? Let's just say starting at 65 for the officer instead of 60.
If you're at 65 for the officer, then you're whatever the fringe benefits are associated with that.
Usually about 1.2 or 1.3 times salary, somewhere in that range.
And then on top of that, uniforms, equipment. We do have firearms, so we're okay in that particular area. But we would need more radios, equipments, things like that.
Need another car?
Yes, sir.
Okay, so I'm trying to roll that cost up in my head as to what one more officer would essentially cost all in.
If I had to throw a number at it,
just a guess, just the best guess.
The officer and the equipment in and of itself probably 110, and then another 70 for a vehicle. If we were to get a vehicle with the officer.
110 plus 70, and we don't have any vehicles capable of that officer right now.
I have 6 vehicles, one of which is about to go back to the shop. So that drops us down. We just got one back from the shop. We have 5 that the 7 of us are using.
Okay. I don't think, I'm not going to ask any more questions, but I would recommend, Mayor, that we spend a little bit more time on that, take a harder look at our needs versus the police department. Really got trimmed more than any other department when 2 years ago, when the rollback hit and they had to drop people, which dropped by just normal attrition, wasn't it? It wasn't, but anyway, that's all I'm going to say is that I'd like to at least go back and revisit that and maybe invite the chief to come in and let us listen to some of your other options about things that and have a cost attached to that so we can at least look at it. So I don't have any further questions. Thanks for your time.
I just had one comment if I could. I mean, I've been in that situation before where staff was, let's say, below the market level, and that's okay for a short period of time, but long period of time, I think that leads to people leaving as well as just generally not happy with the situation. So if that means we need to put some more money in the bucket, at least looking at this version of it, the salaries and wages for officers was 310 in this proposed budget, you know, plus 10% there isn't something that's even we're going to see in the budget. But if that helps you, right, get them to where you're happy, they're happy, and you think you solved at least a deferred long-term problem, I think we should do it.
I have one question. Listening to this discussion, comparing a full-time code enforcement person, officer, all that, that's currently not in our budget. We can have an officer. But having a full-time code enforcement officer, are they less expensive than a full-time police officer?
Absolutely. You're looking 45 to 50 for a full-time code enforcement officer. Whole lot less equipment. So I would say yes, that a full-time code enforcement officer is less expensive than an officer in and of itself. But I would also say that if we go with the plan that I detailed earlier, where we use Officer Oster and we slide him into a detective 3 days a week, and we use him as code enforcement the other 2 days a week, that's $2,000. That's a $2,000 stipend versus $45,000 for a full-time employee.
What I was thinking going through all the scenarios was, given how tight we are with our police staff, would it be more effective if we came up with the money to support another FTE in the department to fund a code enforcement officer and free up the police officer's time to maintain a full-time police officer for about half time to 60% time police officer to do another one?
Well, and
that's just throwing another idea out there.
Yeah, to be honest with you, the FTE, full-time employee, if it was strictly a code enforcement officer, I would still be close to the same position I'm in now. And the reason I say that is because that would still leave us with one officer on shift. And if that officer was conducting investigations, then they can't go to Waco. We have to make arrangements for things like that. Officer Oster is my evidence technician. When he needs to take stuff to the lab, when he needs to take drugs to the lab to have positive identification, or if he needs to take blood specimens to Austin so that they can have the BAC analyzed, the blood alcohol concentration analyzed. Those are days where he's going to be gone for 3-4 hours, and we have to either pay somebody to cover the road or I cover the road. And lately it's been me covering the road, myself and Lieutenant Dunshee. So, I don't want to get into a position. I really like the detective position, and let me tell you why I like that detective position. I don't want to get into a position where a patrol officer has to decide whether he's going to be out writing citations and enforcing the law, or he's going to be working on a case that you can't do both at the same time. There's no way to do both at the same time. When they're on the road, they're doing traffic stops and things like that. I don't want their mind anywhere other than where they are at that particular moment. And the same thing when they're doing investigations. I don't want them to start an investigation and be working on something and then have to get up and run and get a cat out of a tree or move a box out of the roadway and then come back and try to start on the investigation again and then get up and have to go do something else. It's ineffective. So having one individual that can concentrate on those investigations will make us more efficient in the long run. And that's why I came up with the schedule that I came up with in order to facilitate that particular deficiency, in order to hopefully correct that particular deficiency that we had.
So, I want to make sure I'm understanding correctly. So if you had the ability to get another FTE, and I hear you say you prefer a detective so that you have somebody supporting that line and not being a co-officer?
I have an individual that I have identified and we're planning on sending into training for it, and that's Officer Oster. What the FTE would technically do is replace Officer Oster on the road.
He'd be the detective.
He would slide into the detective position, and the FTE would, the full-time employee would assume his position on the road. Officer Oster was extremely excited about the possibility of that occurring.
I think at this point I would look to see, you talked about the tax rate and the options on the tax rate.
Good.
I think you need to.
We good, sir?
Oh. You can leave, sir. Sorry. I don't mean to keep you up here. So, we talked about the tax rate. We just had a good discussion around the police department and things there. I think I recall, Alderman Lasser and Alderman Dunn said we went through the general fund budget. I do not believe outside of I think the other big issue that I was bringing to the attention about Alderman Ventura and Alderman Baluco is that we spent quite a bit, or spent a little bit of time talking about the capital outlay for the tractors. And that's originally the equipment budget to buy some of that equipment was like 70, 80,000, or maybe 50,000. Okay. So we in our finance committee reduced that down to 20,000. With the idea that maybe find a brand new vehicle, find a used vehicle. So that's what's currently in the budget. So I point that out. But is there anything else? I can't remember. There also was a discussion I'll point out on putting in down at Case Park, or not Case Park, but down at Serena Park, right? The kiosk for the paddleboard rental. That basically is budget neutral because we put in the cost for that, and as soon as we get revenue, rental fees to offset that. And that technically is something that we debate back and forth as far as took it out and taking out the revenue, so it doesn't really have an impact on the budget with the way we put it into the budget. But I just point that out as something that just stick around as an idea and that people visiting might enjoy having ability.
We could, since Gina's here and everyone's here, can we talk a little bit about more on that one? Because you put in a projection, or someone put in a projection that we saw for we're going to make like 30,000 in revenue. What was the logic? I mean, this year I could see it where the paddle boat canoes like could be beneficial. I could definitely see it being in Sherrill Park. We've had good rain, good water flow, good. But if you had a year we went through a drought, they would sit there. I mean, there's areas where you'd have to literally pick up and move versus a rental of an inner tube or something like that. I just, where did the idea come from? I think it's a great idea on certain parts of the creek, but what was the concept behind it?
Yeah, I do. Okay.
Here, so really the concept was we're already seeing that in the Serena Park area. So this would be an addition to that, and they could actually go underneath the I-35. They would not even have to go, but right now, as you pointed out, they definitely could. There would be no pause of them picking it up. And if you've paddleboard or kayak before, it's really the same depth as you are when you're tubing. There's not a ton of extra water that you need. It's just the ability of transportation, and the water is a little bit different, right? Because you're using an oar. So they could definitely enter Serena Park into the water, and then they could do their transportation underneath the I-35. That would be when we had lower water. And so I think it would be a great addition. It's definitely got a great ROI on it. It's something that I felt that we have undervalued our creek, and you do see it. We're seeing more and more of them. I mean, the high school, they even bring a group of kids over.
Cheryl Park all the time.
Yeah,
totally
all
agree.
the time.
Yeah.
So, and one of their reasons is a lot easier to get in and out of because of the bus.
So where would be the station you would rent from and drop them back off at?
My recommendation was to put it at Serena Park, because then that way it's right there. You've got access to the water. It's programmed. You cannot rent dusk to dawn. And I mean, it's got the credit card machine that already comes with it. It's a one-stop shop.
Okay.
So.
But that land's owned by the country club, correct?
That land is. So which one? I'm sorry.
Serena Park.
We own.
I'm not Serena. I'm thinking Cheryl Park. Sorry.
So.
I got confused.
Yes.
All right. Serena
Yes.
Park. Okay.
So, the land.
All right.
Correct. So, let me see if I had any other notes that I could share with you all. I mean, that was the big thing. I know that we talked about the ability of when, you could rent it and when you couldn't. I wanted to share that it's already programmed for you not to be able to do it from dusk to dawn.
If it disappears because they decide to take it, is the credit card?
You mean the whole machine?
No. The kayak.
Oh, the kayak.
If they take it, they rent it, but then they never bring it back. Is their credit card?
We have their credit card on file.
So,
and then
you would run the full amount for a replacement?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes. So that is when you rent the kayak along with the life jacket and the oar, you scan your credit card. You have to scan that credit card when you return it, and that's how it closes that sale out. If you do not, then you've got the liability of you're going to...
A company that manages this, that does set this all up?
Yes, they're out of Granbury, and several cities have used them, in addition to Texas Parks and Wildlife. They have this unit, on their land as well. So it comes highly recommended.
Cool. I don't know.
Right, 18,000 for the small station, and we're projecting 30. And I projected very, I didn't project high. I was very conservative on that projection. And we have to think of that as an income for our parks department, which would go into general funds, which we do not have. At some point, we do need to look at expanding that quality of life for our citizens. And I'm sorry, sir.
Yeah, we just changed exactly. Otherwise, we wouldn't be doing it. But for the first year out of the gate, we just made an adjustment to say we're a break even. Yeah. So we're just first year out of the gate, we'll cover our costs. As long as we do that, it'll grow from there. But I appreciate the additional details because I think it's a great idea. Just trying to understand where the logistics of how it all is going to take place.
Is this a multi-year contract or a one-year contract?
So the machine would be ours.
Oh, we're going to buy it. So basically, we're taking an $18,000 risk in essence. That's what we're talking about. That's no problem. I just want to make sure that's the limit of it. Okay.
I think it may not, if it doesn't perform at 18,000 per year over 2 or 3 years, hopefully no more than 2, it'll pay for itself over time.
But the investment cost is $18,000, and then it's all variable after that. That's fine.
Yep.
I have some questions about roads, if we can get to that.
I have one question.
Sure.
Are we talking kayaks? Are we talking paddle boats, combination?
So what I put in the budget for the equipment, I did the kayaks.
Okay.
So, but we could do half kayaks, half paddleboard. I mean, as long as they're hard, we're not going to do any type of blow up, right?
Right.
So,
Okay.
and that's with the life jackets and with the oar.
Right.
So I figured all of that into there. The only additional cost that we would have would be $9.95 monthly fee for that credit card terminal from here out. I mean, so that's an agreement with that. So
What's that? $9.95? You said $9.95?
$9.95 per month. Yes.
Yeah. Thank you.
You're welcome. Thank you.
Okay.
Any other questions on the
No, ma'am.
kayak?
I
Okay.
think that's good. Appreciate it. Before we get, Jeff, to your road comment, I just wanted to make sure, because we'll spend more time on that, I think. I wanted to, as I was looking through the annual budget, where we're at and where we end, there was a difference that I wanted you to highlight. I marked it on the sheet here. In the Public Works Department, we had an annualized budget of $71,000 this year. It's going to be $104,000 next year. Mainly, most of that is in wages and health care. I don't know if that's insurance or what that is, but are you able to comment on that difference?
Yes, I think that the salary or wages is a significant part of that. This year we have not had a full 1.5 position year round. Next year we're budgeted to have full 1.5 positions for the full year. So that difference of accounts for a bulk of that. And then that rolls into the cost. There's actually compensation for that factors in the rest of the increases on the other line item, whether it's uniform for boots or benefits.
Okay, yeah, that makes sense. I did that. You couldn't tell by just looking at it. That's why I wanted to just get that clarified. And then on the technology, on the page before, on page 6, obviously we're investing in more technology, which I think we all agree we need. You want to kind of comment on that a little bit?
Part of that, only part of that, the website, that's the, on page 6.
Page 6. It's 6215.1 unit. We're going from 11,000 budget to 34,000. Oh, that's the chief? Okay. Do you know what that is? Is that radios and stuff like that? Okay. All right. Okay. All right. For some reason I missed that, and I just wanted to get that clarified. Okay. Jeff, you have some questions on roads? You want to take it away?
I brought my soapbox with me, so be careful. I think about the time we spent walking around the neighborhood talking to folks, and one of their key issues was roads, right? I heard from everybody. I look at this budget, we're proposing to spend 3% of our budget on roads, 3%. I think there's going to be pushback on that, and I think it's rightly so. If I understand this correctly, and I'm just coming up to speed on the numbers, it looks like there's about $100,000 in there for capital outlay, which is basically us. Some of the roads we can do ourselves with Andrew, patches and quick stuff. Most of it, though, requires other types of equipment, roads to be cut out, and a capital project to be done. So it's $100,000 in here, which is about 10 locations, right, of basically cutting up asphalt, putting the asphalt down, 10 locations in the entire village. I think as a minimum, this should be double that number. 20 locations. You can say, we could probably find 30 or 40 locations. We're not talking about doing large repavement of any portion of the road. We're talking about the stuff that We've got an ongoing list of always 5 to 10 projects of this corner here needs to be repaved, this needs to be done here, this needs to be done here. It's probably the most visible thing we have in our budget. And I don't understand why we can't allocate more money to that. Now, I'm going to throw out controversial stuff here because I haven't gone through the whole budget. It looks like we're running on order of 600,000. Is that correct? Ahead of our net income for the year, if I read this number correctly, John. So that says we've done a good job of budgeting. We haven't spent as much money as we expected to spend.
That's going to go down.
The income is always front loaded.
So that's going to go down.
It's going to go down.
Yeah.
It's going to go down, but we got a couple more months basically, right? So maybe we end up, I don't know, $300,000-$400,000 basically. We've done a good job of managing the budget this year. We're proposing to add. We'd said we want to have 200,000. We're going to end up at 400,000. Next year we said we want to have 255,000 reserved basically. I expect the number's going to be bigger because we've been talking all along of sales tax are increasing. You know, we finally got some of the sins of the past, Quick Trip Online and O'Reilly and all those things coming in. I think we need to find ways to skinny other stuff down because if I look at the list, what do they care about? Police, fire, water, which we share with other people, roads, ordinance, and marketing and business development, right? Marketing and business development is going to be small. We've got a large budget for police, which I think is great, and I fully support that. Fire, I think we share with other folks. Roads has to be a bigger number. I can't imagine what the social media is going to be when we come out with the budget and say, my budget's going up by 10%, something like that, you know, in terms of revenue, and I'm going to keep my road budget at 3% of an increased amount. They should bring pitchforks and, you know, tar and feathers. And this is my soapbox.
No, that is a soapbox. That's been part of the soapbox for us too.
Yeah.
Before we spent the last 10 plus years taking away from the road budget and height. We have no money to redo the roads.
We can't repay them. There's no way to do major construction.
Unless you do a road bond. But
yeah.
So yeah. So,
totally understand.
So that's been part. So I totally agree with that. That's one of the reasons why I wanted to get Chief Fields up here, because if we decide to go to a higher rate, these are the things you're going to get. One of them would be more road improvement.
Yeah.
I think it's, to your point, it's a valid point. We all like to see more roads. So here's the homework for the alderman. Mm-hmm. Alan, here's the homework. Right now, we've got to decide on what the proposed rate is. If we do nothing, no new revenue rate means our rate for property taxes is going to go down. Not even stay the same, it's going to go down. And where we've increased money in this budget, we have added the sales tax revenue, so that's been added. Obviously, you got a 4% cost of living increase. It's going to take some of that new revenue away. But I think where the exercise needs to come is take a look at where last year's annual budget is and where the new annual budget has been set. And it's just it's a process of saying, do I want to put, for example, do I want to put the $18,000? Well, that actually the kiosk doesn't really help because you got revenue and expense. So you really just need to look at expense and say where expenses are going up. Do I want to do stuff there this year, the $20,000, or do I want to take that, put it into your road? Those are the questions that I think the aldermen have to go through and ask themselves, where is there an increase? Do I want to not put that money there? I want to put it into the road maintenance. And I think that's a valid decision. The other thing, which I think Alderman Dunn pointed out, is because of these varying tax rates, if we want to put more money in roads, then we might want to consider a higher tax rate in order to develop revenue that would then allow us to put more money. So it's a
and I don't guarantee the de minimis will cause a petition to go and we'll have it on the ballot. Staying at the current rate, I think we would have more to then put to roads and add police, and that's what you get for that value. And I think that's an easier sell But the other thing we got to be careful, the other thing, we are not financially secure. We've been digging ourselves out, but we don't have 3 months out of the minimum of reserves that we need. Yeah, and so the other thing we need to be planning for is to make sure as a municipality, we are financially secure.
You have reserves because you don't have a line of credit. I get it.
Don't.
And that just has to be all part of the dialogue, right? And especially if you're going to ask for a little bit more on the tax rate, which I'm fine with, we should be able to point to, we're good stewards of that. Look at all the money we've been spending already on roads, and we want to continue that. And I still think we get more mileage out of advertising what we've been doing, because I don't think we've blown our horn enough there. I spend too much time on social media. And I need to wean myself from that. But I don't think we get enough accolades, nor do we spend enough time talking about what we've been doing on social media. And I'm okay to make that dialogue of, a little higher tax rate, and we're going to continue what you're already seeing now. When will this become public to the folks to start looking at it? When will this become visible? This.
It's public now.
Public now.
Okay.
The draft.
This is just a draft. This is by no means near the final. And there'll be a public hearing in September for the budget for the final proposed budget.
Okay. And how much money do we have to play around if we have a different tax rate? I'm looking at the sheet, but I'm sorry, I didn't catch this part.
Well, to answer that question, we're going to increase, the revenue's going to increase. I think this is conservative, so.
Right.
John, if I say anything that's not accurate, then correct me, that revenue conservatively is going to go up about 400,000.
Right.
And that would be at the, hopefully it's in. I thought it was on. Okay. So 400,000. We're projecting a 400,000 revenue increase, but that's based on the no new revenue rate. Mr. Administrator?
That's correct.
Okay. So you're at the lowest. So Jeff, you're at the lowest tax rate with the no new revenue rate.
Okay.
Of your options that you have before you. So that's 400,000. So you start factoring in, math-wise, what are expenses that are going to go up that you can't control? Well, you got the salary increase, the staff increase, and that's in the budget right now.
All the things that happen in budgets, yep.
And you could probably moderate that a little bit if you wanted to. And then look through that, and then if you said, well, we're not going to change the revenue, then we've got to pull down some of these expenses. I think that's a worthwhile debate. We also know that we had the police department discussion. There's a feeling that the police department probably needs some additional resources as well. But I think everybody takes the time to look at that. You can see the $400,000 get gobbled up. But to John's point, we've tried to be good stewards in saying we need to continue to put money in reserve. So this budget does generate pay down to the reserve, or pay
basically
up.
10% reserve amount.
Yeah. So there are options.
Yeah.
And so I'm totally in agreement with you that I would like to see more money go to the roads, and it's just how do we achieve doing that at this point?
Thank you for listening to my soapbox.
I support that thought in further discussion.
Yeah.
Clearly.
But you
make some good points on that, and I respect that, and I think we should look at that too. And a lot of the other major things we have, and that's how we address it.
Yeah. So just for clarification, or
just one, if I could, one question on this. So yeah. I understand that budgets are always a bit of a guessing game. We're sort of saying that tax rate's going to be here, but here's sales tax, and that one can go up or down, as we all know. But if we have the option though to let's say we want to put another $50,000 at least in the budget for roads. That doesn't mean we have to spend it. If things aren't going our way, right, we can say, you know what, we're going to pull back on that because sales tax are down, or these other expenses are up, or we're not collecting enough, we're not putting enough in reserves. I would rather err on the side of leaning into it from a budget perspective, and then we're able to
correct me if I'm wrong, we're able to pull back a little bit on those expenditures because we don't have to spend all the money. But that way we're at least positioning ourselves, so that's where I want to get to, is an increased spend in that area. Does that make any sense?
And it's been ignored for years and years because that's where we've constantly taken money.
Yeah.
And that's why we're in the situation.
Well, the roads are just 25 years old, and that just happens, right? So nothing we do here in our budget fixes major reconstruction of the road. The money's just 10 times, 50 times more than that, right?
Totally agree with that. But it would come with the exercise, I would say. For example, well, we don't want to increase revenue at all. You know, we're just going to go to no new revenue rate. Then the exercise should be, it's a higher priority to put more money in the road maintenance fund. So where do you want to take that from within the budget? And go into it with a plan that that's how we're going to discipline ourselves. And then if more revenue comes, we can make different.
I'm just trying to think through what the open sessions are going to be like, and I can't imagine there's anyone coming in and says, please tax me more, right? That's going to be a difficult discussion. But of course, they come in and say, please don't tax me more, tax me less, but I want more services. And those two things are not in agreement with each other.
And that's where this one will most likely lead to, just like it did last year, where it'll end up having to go, have a petition, the de minimis tax rate. So that one will probably, the prior year rate could lead to that too, but the prior year rate is basically staying right where you're at, but you're going to get X, Y, and Z because we're going to have additional budget. I think that's a good sell. I think that's the comp. That doesn't mean it still won't end up on that.
So if you went with this last year's rate of the 2115 in the example, what does that mean in terms of additional funds available for?
221.
Okay.
That's the difference. So that would get us the police. That would get us more funding.
That's a lot of things that, are positive things for sure.
So the two, I mean, because we are a growing community. That's why I wanted police chief Fields to come up because there's no question there's higher demands on that department.
Let me ask a silly question. What's the last year's rate?
No, you don't have to.
Yeah. No.
Mr. Benson said you guys had some questions
Last year's rate is what we're paying. This example for 500K home is paying today, and this is for school as well as city, right?
No, that's just city. This is no other.
I don't pay $2,000. I pay like $600.
I'm not the person that put the numbers together.
Okay. So I mean, so my house is about that, and it's $7,000 bill. $5,000 that goes to the school. Right. Some goes to Bell County. $600 is all that goes to the village. It's a small amount. It's not $2,000 for sure.
Yeah, on the full tax bill.
Yeah. So I don't know what this number is, but if as long as it's comparable, that's fine. But I don't understand what this number is. I understand if we stick with last year's tax rate, there's more revenue available for us. I'm hoping that 221K that you mentioned, Neil, is about that number. That's fine, but I don't know what this 2115 number is. I don't know.
Okay.
I just would like to elaborate if we're done with that and kind of go back to the roads and the tractor by then.
Before we do that, let me get this last question to Steve and we'll come right back to you. I asked a question about the increase in the technology. Couldn't remember what that was. Was that just radios?
No, sir. What I did, and I tried to do this the first year I got here, and then I tried to do it again last year, and I was overruled on it. So I'm trying to do it again this year. I moved funds. If you'll notice, I moved the funds from 6227 capital outlay PD equipment. Those are our contracts for Axon. Those are our contracts for CopSync. Those are our contracts for Niche, and they don't need to be under equipment. They need to be under IT because that's what they are. We're not purchasing equipment. I just moved those funds, and that's why if you look up to 6215.1 PD or technology PD, last year was 11,000, and this year it's 34,600. Why? Because I moved all of our contracts under the same. That's what they are. We're not purchasing equipment with them. It's technology contracts. I did leave $1,000 in PD equipment, capital outlay for PD equipment. Reason being, last year when we got the radio grant, the grant was $12,649. By the time we got that quote in January, by the time we were able to purchase that equipment price had gone up by about $600. So with that being said, I went ahead and put $1,000 in there because we were trying to get another grant. And because I have to get the quote so far in advance before we're awarded that, there's a possibility that that price may change. And if it did, I wanted to be ready for it. I didn't want to have to come back to the alderman and go, hey, if we're going to get this $12,649 grant, I'm going to need another $600. So I just wanted to make sure that those bases were covered. Yes, sir.
Okay, Gina.
Mayor, thank you. I appreciate that. So I am scheduled to give you a roads update at the next board meeting, but I wanted to kind of highlight some of the work that we have done, so that way you kind of have maybe a better understanding when we're talking about these budget numbers. And I understand that roads are important to all of us, and I know that you all get that as well as the citizens. A few things that I want to highlight that Alderman Dunch did discuss is, in the past, roads were always kind of overlooked and put aside, right? Because we know that it's very expensive. And we did not really have a team that was filling potholes. It was volunteers whenever we had the supplies. So it was very, very limited. And again, we appreciate those volunteers in the past years. But since February, when I've taken over the Public Works Department, the new team, they really got on board with trying to look and fix those potholes whenever we've seen them. So beginning from February to date, which was July, and then you also have to remember May through July was excessive mowing periods, right? So they don't get to really concentrate on patching those holes like they normally would. So very limited on the months that we were able to do that. And the guys were able to do 14 streets with multiple potholes on those streets. So again, that was time consuming, but they did a great job. When they're mowing without adequate equipment, and that's why I wanted to talk about the tractor makes their job efficient. Right now, they're weed eating, by hand out there in the green space at Pace Park for our citizens to enjoy that along the creek. They've done a great job, but again, efficiency. And we need the tractor for various things just beyond the mowing. I think that we're also forgetting about now Salado Center. Those roads and that public right-of-way is ours. Those guys have to take care of mowing over there if it needs to be mowed, putting the signs up if they get knocked down. We have to think about this as we're growing, and not having the equipment is really going to hurt us. We don't have it in the budget to hire another full-time person. Next year, I believe that we probably will. We're going on the right path, but I want you to understand how important this piece of equipment is. We have done nothing for drainage in the past years. You saw it in the budget. We've got $20,000, but again, we need a tool to help us. If we have to go rent something, that's not efficient. It's taking them 5 hours to drive somewhere back and forth to load it up and go. I mean, what we're doing is we're affecting the efficient timeline of what they've got when I've got one full-time person and then another part-time person. And we've got it in the budget where we're looking at adding that flexible person to come in whenever we need the support. And we will be adding that person whenever I can find them. And we'll concentrate on that. I actually think I've got somebody. But I wanted you to understand that in 2025, when we completed the road repairs, I was here, but I was not over that department. The roads that we actually did in 2025 was 4 roads the whole year. That was pothole repair, and then we had a culvert repair, which was massive. So we have made great strides. Am I saying that are we perfect? No, but I want you to have an understanding of what we're doing. And Phase 1, we've already completed for this year. That was contracted. That was 2 major road repairs. And then we've got 4 other major road repairs that will get done in August for Phase 2, and then we'll have a Phase 3 in September. So alone with that small budget, we're on track. I mean, we're doing.
For, just like it says, a patch, a small thing to stop the pothole from becoming a bigger one. But a lot of times you have these sections of road that are a car width wide that have to be replaced completely. And there's no way to do that. And the longer you wait,
The worse it gets.
the worse it gets.
And then that means you have to do a full cutout, which is Baylock, which is a huge expense for us because we're in a mode where we are playing whack-a-mole with our roads of trying to keep them.
Yeah, and I don't know if we ever get to the point where we're ahead of it because there's major portions have to be completely
I think the
redone.
only way you're
That's a
gonna
bond
get there
issue.
is if the bond, if we
Right,
get the bond out.
because at some
So
point in time,
we're-
Chisholm's going to have to be repaved completely, right? And that's a $1.5 million, $2 million job, and that's nowhere, anywhere in our plans for a budget. It's impossible for us to do that. But
So, I think the exercise was, one is, what do we set proposed tax at, whether we stay there or not, will be debated over 30 days or less. So we got to get to it. And if we get a higher rate, then clearly I think there's a good argument to be made that if there's support by the community for a higher rate than the new revenue rate, then you could put 50, 60, 70, you could put additional revenue into the road maintenance fund that we talked about. Which could be helpful. It's still Band-Aids, but it could be helpful. Still,
I think what I think we're getting at here is that I think we're going to plan for one, but if we get a higher rate, I think part of this discussion is leading us to what are those things that you're going to get, right? And then we can have 2 different budgets, one with this rate, one with that rate, and by the way, if we get approval and it goes, then fee fields can go higher, roadworks can add additional budget, and we can move forward.
I would give you a third option. Transparent, completely understanding all the scenarios. The third option is everybody takes time to go back through the budget and look at what needs to be expense categories, what expenses are increasing the most, and make your own judgment on whether you think that you get by with not increasing that as much and come up with an extra $50,000 to $60,000 to get for those things. That would be the other.
Mayor, I'll say something. Yes. I was to say, don't forget about the development fees visitation we're going to do, which I looked at that chart before the meeting that we've got to, if we do choose to raise some of our planning fees and other things on new development, it's a pretty significant revenue increase there, potential revenue increase there too. So not just on the expense side, but somewhat on the development fee side, planning fees, inspection fees, and those things.
Well, that's really, so Gina, do you mind talking about this? Because we talked about this as a workshop, but I mean, was this only looking at our cost plus, or was this looking at what the market rate in surrounding areas are, or a combination of both?
I think there's a lot of money here in terms of what we're talking about now between raising that percentage from 10% on development fees and covering our costs, which we don't particularly, we're not particularly confident that we're covering at this point, subject to some cost accounting analysis by Christie, but also but new plat fees and the rest. So I think there's a pretty significant portion on both of those ends that we really haven't completely addressed yet. But we more than scratched the surface. That's all I wanted to say.
You want to talk about your recommendation?
Yes, sir. Thank you. So I did make copies for you all. You have it in front of you. If you actually go to 1, 2, 3, 4, I'm sorry that I did not number your pages. Page number 5, that's going to give you the current breakdown of what we have as in a comparison to Belton, Temple, Hawker Heights, and Gerald. And as you can see on the first page, that was the recommendations. And I thought, we would stay something that was very conservative. And of course, you could always do something that is a little bit higher if you felt needed. But in saying that, what we did was we took all of those fees that we currently have, not creating any new fees. This is what you're looking at, and what that adjustment would be. And this was just a market analysis. This had we did not factor in staffing time. I mean, we just, to be honest with you, we need to do a little bit deeper dive, and John and I both discussed that. There are some other factors that we would like to figure in, but we wanted to give you what you asked for, and this is exactly what I produced, was this report. And then if you look a little bit further down below on page 1, that we could still increase our revenues by all of these items. We don't charge a technology fee. I mean, there's a lot of fees that we don't charge, so we could look at adding those, and those have not been put into your projected budget. Those are items that we would have to look into a little bit deeper, but there's opportunity for us to have more revenue coming in from the permit and the development department.
Paul, there it goes.
There you go.
What you have, the numbers that are in this budget is the market rate assessment or analysis of surrounding communities. We have not yet completed the cost recovery part of that was discussed, of what is the percentage of staff time involved with each of these applications. As Gina just referenced, the technology GIS fee, that yesterday when we saw that, we're like, in the budget, we pay the Bell County Appraisal District, I believe it's about $26,000, our share of their GIS system. Now, we use that GIS too. It's well worth the money, but we're not currently recovering any of that cost. And that GIS is used a lot in context to development applications. And so when we take the total number of development applications and divide that cost out, we can start recovering that cost to the point that you brought up in our meeting earlier this week, that things like that like, oh, yeah, that, not just staff time, but these other costs.
Yeah.
It's no cost to the existing people either. It's a cost to the new coming in that helps
Right.
with the process. So it's not an extra burden on the existing community. It's, you want to come into Salado, these are the fees to come in.
That's exactly right.
Yes, sir.
But how do you disseminate this? I mean, there's from Salado, there's a huge, Gerald seems like it's the outlier that's extremely high, right?
Yeah.
And so, but they got high rates there. I just don't know how you disseminate your recommendation. I mean, it's.
I guess that's our point. We don't have a recommendation yet because we're not done doing the analysis.
Okay, but the important thing is
this is just part one of that.
But if we understand our costs, when you came into our workshop, or not a workshop, but our committee, you were more concerned. We're not even covering our costs here today.
Right. If you look at page 4, I mean, those are the recommendations of everything else that we need to figure in at the bottom. On our policy, and it not only does it just talk about staff hours, I mean, it talks about the software, the GIS, which John just mentioned. I mean, and we need to be looking at this, annually, making those adjustments, because our third-party investors, or I'm sorry, not investors, our third-party contractors, they have increases too. I mean, do we go back and look at that? We haven't adjusted our rates in quite some time.
Right.
So.
I guess, to clarify, when you said, are we covering our costs? We don't know that answer yet, because we haven't figured out what our actual costs are. This is the market, so this is the ballpark in which we're playing, so to speak. And now where our costs fall within this range, that's what we're still working on.
And we're behind on our fees, because we haven't raised them in a while, and our expenses may be too high because we hadn't been getting reimbursed ourselves enough for those. So there's two ones, revenues going up, expenses going down, and that's not even in this budget right now, correct?
So to address your question, Neil, I think
Is that right? Did you answer me?
Yes, that's right.
Yeah, so those aren't even reflected.
So to clarify what you have in front of you, this report, and I apologize, Alderman, I thought you were done. I didn't mean to speak over you. So this is just for those platting fees that you saw between the 4 cities. That's what that recommendation is, for those fees only, okay?
I got it.
I always look for some type of baseline, and so, I mean, to me, the question would be, because I know houses here in Salado aren't at the top, but they're in the upper part of what housing prices are.
They're far more expensive than Gerald.
Absolutely. So I would look for, the fees as a percentage of the sales price as a benchmark to say, where do we rank? And I expect, based on this, comparing us to Gerald, we got to be half of what their fee structure is. That's how I would look at it. But I'm curious, Alan, of course, is the guy that builds houses all over the place. So they probably look at some of these and go, well, that seems expensive, but that seems cheap, right? So, I mean, he'd be in a much better position than I would, but that benchmark would be a nice way to look at it. I don't want to be Gerald. I'm okay if the fees here are such that, I don't know what the fee structure is, but looks like $700, $800, something like that per house, for a $500,000 house. I'm like, that's, I don't know what to make of that. That's
Okay. So, another thought to consider, the board to consider is about going into finalizing both the tax rate and what changes we want to make to the budget, both revenue and expense. Right. We need a big for that. Yeah. Before next week. Yeah. So we can put it together before board meeting. Okay. Any other questions? That's kind of, at this point, I don't have any more questions on the general revenue fund. Is there anything we want to talk about before we during the workshop on the hot tax fund, or the
Deanna has provided her updated proposed tourism marketing plan, as well as her updated dues and subscriptions plan, and then some additional sheet of information on the budget on the talks to the maximum 15% for our historic restoration and preservation, and 15% of total revenue, annual revenues for the arts.
Is her update in this one?
Yes.
Okay.
And the finance committee had seen this before. At your request, she has gone back and prioritized the marketing and dues and subscriptions, and that's the updated sheet that she's provided.
So do we?
So I don't know if you want her.
Deanna come up.
Yeah, that's obviously your call. So.
Good afternoon.
Thank you. So we were in the committee, and I know, at least I think Jim and I didn't have an opportunity to meet with you directly, so thanks for this time, because what we sensed from it was, at least I did, was we've kind of putting handcuffs on it for the last how many years. We have this nice reserve,
right,
and then, we want to influx it, but part of my concern is we kind of go guardrail to guardrail, because we were going to go a deficit budget, what we reviewed, which included the visitor center, which was 60K, but we were still going to go in a deficit of 120K.
right.
So making sure we were spending money, because you had a lot of new things in there, and which ones give us the biggest bang for the opportunity is one of the things first. And I think what you just came back with is a prioritization of that.
Yes, so
Okay.
they are in priority. If I did color code this too, so the yellow is what we currently have. Oh, you have black and white. I'm sorry. Okay, that's okay. So they are is it in the black and white? Does it even show the highlight at all on yours? It does not. Okay, no problem. So they are in order here, and it does state what we have. The other pieces that I've added to it, I was really frugal when I was actually putting this together. These are things that we, in order to stay based on internet when people are doing research and just to make the connection, these items were included in here for us to be able to make that connection, and they're not just finding our name on there, but to go back and touch them again. I did go back based on what you guys had asked in regards to looking to see where we could cut cost. And on that marketing sheet, on the marketing plan, I actually didn't take anything out of there, but I did take expense out of that, because it will be the first time that we have utilized those products where we would be adding, for instance, like Facebook campaigns, Google searching, retargeting. That'll be the first time we've actually done any of that stuff. So I did lower those prices by half, and some more, just so that we could at least use them and still have those tools, and lower the expense. One of the other things I actually did take out was I had a marketing expense of $5,000, and the idea was that as we start building relationships with these partnerships that are on the dues and subscriptions sheet, that allows us funds that if we want to set a booth somewhere, that we'd be able to do that. If there's any cost that's projected in there, whether it's going to one of the classes or attending a market day and they charge for the booth, those were the items. So, but I cut that out, and where I put that expense was in the overall meeting and group sales. I just put $2,500 there, and I had lowered that price. So additionally, altogether, I've cut down between the marketing plan and the dues and subscriptions about $16,000. When you go to the dues and subscriptions, they are also in order. Placer AI is on the top. So let's just, the first three items, Canva Pro is something we use every day. We have Constant Contacts, and then GoDaddy obviously holds our website in place. Placer AI is a great tool for us. That's probably the most expensive, the $9,500 for the year. However, that is a great tool for us to be able to find out when somebody comes to Salado. First of all, where they come from, what their activities are when they're here, to find out what their interests are, and then where they go when they leave as well too. And it will help us give a guide, so that also when you're looking at doing marketing, it also lets you know what to market and where to market and what the interests are, so that you can utilize that avenue of increasing your visitors and your analytics. And then the Adobe Creative Pro, the purpose for that, let me not let you get confused with what's on the marketing side. On the marketing plan of the content creation, so those two are different. The content creation is meant specifically for our website company. They are a professional content marketing company. They do professional photography, professional videos, drones. I think those things would be really well accepted on our website to show activity, and that would be where that would be in place. And then this activity, the Adobe Creative Pro is in addition to our Canva, where when we do our videos of interviewing our businesses and our hotels and everything here in tourism, that it'll be an editing tool, and it's an easy editing tool that will also make our videos look professional. We just don't have that full upgrade, tools and equipment that they have. So those are the two items specifically that I'd like to have. The source strategies that you see, that's a comparison side by side. We do not have that either. And what that does is it lists all the hospitalities that are currently in Salado. And so side by side, you're looking at monthly and yearly. So you can also know how each one is doing. And that way, if somebody is doing significantly better than another, when you're talking to your hospitality, you can ask, what are your marketing tools? What are you doing? And then it's a great guide to be able to help. Maybe not something if you decide that you don't want to use every year, that might be something that you could at least do this year, just so we can kind of get a good feel of, everybody's, what they're doing. Also gives you an average daily rate, that we can know what is kind of an average area here. So when somebody is looking at what they're trying to put a conference together, then we kind of know, we can compare that to others. As far as your membership goes, the Travel Alliance membership, the Brazos Trail region, the hotel lodging, and the Texas destination membership, those are ones that we currently have. And then I had asked for us to be a member of the chamber. I thought that would be great for us to do. And then the meeting professionals would be where we are a part of the Texas Hill Country chapter. And what that does is that opens doors for us to actually meet the planners, meet professionals in the building, looking for places to come and host conferences or weddings and things of that sort. Otherwise, we're doing it cold calling in, which is what we have been doing. And the memberships are a lot cheaper than advertising.
That was a lot, but when you were saying these are, let's just go back to marketing initiatives.
Sure.
So if these are ranked, we've had a thing with Cadence that what I've been told is that has not been real effective, at least than what, or is that, and they do more. Are we seeing benefit? I mean, we're adding things. My question is, should certain things be cut, or should certain things just...
Right. Yeah, if I thought it needed to be cut, I would have taken it out of there. So as far as that goes, our hotels, our Days Inn and our Holiday Inn,
Yep.
those benefit from that. And the reason for that is right off the highway, 10 minutes away from the Cadence Bank Center, and that is a fact that they do benefit from those. I've also had a Stagecoach Inn who's benefited from it, a couple of lodging places when people are coming for concerts and they're looking for a place to stay and they're looking something close by. If it's full somewhere else or even full by the Cadence Bank Center, then they come to Salado. We also market, we call every month and invite everybody to come and let us know what they need. We also give this as a marketing tool. We have all the events for the year, and we share that with all of our hospitalities to give them a marketing tool as well. Now, it is a questionable, so this year kind of wanted to see a little bit more about that too, and then maybe next year, maybe not use it.
And then I'm going to skip to the big one that I think was new that I really question versus cutting Google search and cutting Meta, which is Facebook and Instagram. But we're spending $6,000 on the Wall Street Journal out of Dallas.
So that is that comes out of the Dallas. It's being it's advertisement 4 times a year, and it is an ad that is in the Dallas Morning News, which we know Dallas Fort Worth area is our media, our group. This fits our demographic, and then it also is in the Dallas Morning News print, online. And it goes to the Wall Street Journal, which is outside of our area, but it's still the same median group, the audience that we would capture, and it just puts it in another place, another avenue for us to connect people.
Yeah. Deanna, is it In addition to the advertisement, is it not article?
Yes,
To those?
you're right. Online, thank you. Online, print, and then to all their members, that all their.
So is it an advertisement and an article, or
Yes,
just?
it's an article. Yeah, I'm sorry, correct. Yes, there's an article in all of
About
it. Yes.
Salado and
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
Yes.
So Dallas Morning News is a broadcast then that they're going to sit down and talk about how great Salado is in the Dallas area?
No, we have an ad in it.
We have an ad.
We have an ad. So it's an article. It's an article that's in there. I mean, it's advertisement. It's an article that we just put in there about Salado. We get to change it up every year, every quarter. Right.
Yeah, I get it. I mean, in the zip codes that we see is a lot of Dallas and Houston that come.
We do see that, yes. So it fits our demographic very well. Yes.
It seems like Austin heads to Fredericksburg versus here, for whatever reason, or Wimberley, but.
Say that again.
We get a lot of Dallas, you're absolutely right, a lot of
We
Dallas.
do get a lot of Dallas,
Houston,
Fort
more so
Worth,
than we get in
and some
Austin,
Oklahoma,
which is
correct.
even closer, which I just never, I'm not sure where all the Austinites are going, but
Yeah.
I think they're headed to Fredericksburg, but yeah, so it's just, but anyway, if we've captured that market, do we look at, why can't we get more of the Austin market?
I mean, the Austin market's great. Austin market's an hour away. Are they going to spend the night? Those are the things you got to think of.
It's a dry day, okay. But I was a little concerned of cutting the budget on the Google and searches and the Facebook, Instagram, because those are, I was just,
I think that'll just be, this will
Because
give
those
us a
were
good
both-
enough tool
those
to,
were both new. Sorry to interrupt you, but
No, I'm
Facebook,
sorry.
Instagram, and Google were new. According to when we were in our committee, those were new, and I was just surprised that we were just now doing that.
yeah, we haven't been spending anything on that.
Okay.
How do you measure, Deanna, how do you measure the effectiveness of some of these? Some new, some
Yeah.
had for a while.
Right.
But if you think about, what's the best bang for our buck, how we spend, how do you have the tools to measure which programs are getting a good return on versus those that are not, so that, A, put less money in those programs, and get rid of them and put them in the ones that are getting the best.
Sure. So some of these do give you analytics, like the Tour Texas does, which we know that works well. We will be getting that with the Global Heroes as well. As far as your Google Analytics and your Facebook search, that is going to be your responses that you get back when you're looking at your ads to see, like, if you're getting followers, non-followers. Some of it's not necessarily going to be dollar placing, but it's going to, when you start seeing growth here and you start seeing growth in interaction, those are going to be the things that you're going to see that you get. And then as far as, it's not dollar return, but it is, when your streets are busier, your businesses are busier, your overnight stays are those will be how you measure that kind of stuff. And, name recognition is always a bonus. And so it's not something that's always a one-time thing. Sometimes when you're doing marketing, some people, or that after 3 months is kind of when they start seeing name recognition. So, when you're looking at this, maybe it's not every day, but if we're continuing throughout the whole year and not just putting it in during our busiest season, but we're also doing it during our off seasons and we're doing it in between, then it's just that name recognition that keeps our name out there as well.
I just have concerns with, people live and breathe on Facebook, Instagram, and Google searches. From a priority,
So something I
resist
learned
to
on our
see that,
Google
and
search
especially when
too.
we haven't even used it.
So something else too that I have learned on Google search and Facebook is that because of AI, a lot of times if you're not in the right, I'm not saying you have to use AI. I don't care for AI as far as as far advertisement goes, but when you're using those items, if you are not keeping those words in that search where AI thinks those words need to be, then you start lagging. And that also hits on our website too. And that is one of the things when I've been talking to my website company the last couple of months for us to revamp some things, that's one of the things that they had let me know too is that in the Google search, if I am not necessarily posting every day on Google or in my Google search and it's my business deal, then I'm going to get lost in because AI is really strong. So those are things in there that we were going to give it a try and see how well that did for us too. Like it's basically like blogging, just staying above all those researches and resources. But AI is kind of taking over, and it has a specific work because it looks through the whole internet throughout the whole world, and if you're not using the correct wording or in that field, then you get left behind, and that's a whole new format for everybody when it comes to marketing.
So, would it, I think it would be helpful for the board, as you look at these programs, whether you want to call it dashboard or some type of management report of the area, to periodically rate the effectiveness of each of these tools, and what we're seeing as far as the return on investment. I don't know what all the metrics necessarily would be in that, but if we stacked all these up, I think it'd be helpful for us to see from time to time, which ones of these programs, based on those metrics, are producing best return on investment.
Correct.
We can track activity, but that's not the right metric to measure effectiveness for what we're trying to accomplish.
Right. Right.
Kind of thinking if we have something like that, we can summarize quarter, ranking these programs.
Right.
What we do is to be the best effective.
Right, and I think, and obviously being able to start using them, we'll be able to utilize that. We haven't done that in the past. Some of them do, correct, yeah, right.
I don't know what the right answer to this is because there's so many different ways you can advertise, and all the questions here about how effective are they. All the advertising programs I've seen be successful, though, always focus on content.
Yep.
And I'm curious of to what extent, when we advertise Salado, that's a comprehensive message that includes a historical society, which is a big draw, which includes the shopping, which includes the music society stuff. Are we all interlocked in terms of you talk to the historical society and music society, and part of our story we get out there?
I'm very active in all of that, and we always promote every bit of that you talk about in our marketing.
I've seen the website. I'm just. Have you found that any of those are a bigger draw than others?
Yeah, they love history. Absolutely. History, music, and the art. I mean, all the above.
I've always felt like, at least from a historical perspective, if you think of a town like Fredericksburg or other ones like Jefferson, they have a history component to why people go there.
Right.
Classic buildings, the old bed and breakfasts, the mills, things like that. And I've always felt like within Salado, I'm not sure that we get as much mileage out of that history.
Well, if you follow our social media, you will see it on there.
Okay.
Because
that's following the village, or that's following something else? What is that following?
I'm sorry.
What am I following?
You're following Visit Salado on Facebook? Yes, sir. Melanie does a beautiful job in writing the history.
But I think we're going through what is Salado? What is our identity outside? Like when you're going to promote this into the Wall Street Journal, what is it that we're saying we are? Yep. Why are you leaving Dallas and coming to Salado for the weekend?
Well,
I know it's a simple. I mean, sure. I know that in my mind, right. But it's like how you articulate that.
Painting the story and the picture of Salado. So again, as we've mentioned before, when people are looking for a place to go, and everybody is busy thanks to COVID, everybody's looking for the small town place that feels like home, where memories are made and stories are told. You're right off the highway. I mean, we know that kind of gets lost on the highway. So that's where and that's in this article that we wrote. I'm happy to share that with you as well. We did mention that. It's just right off the highway, centrally located. the town parallel to the highway, the town that feels like home, where you make memories with your families. And these days, that's very important to everybody. Everybody's trying to go back to make memories. And this is the picture we paint with Salado.
You come here during Christmas stroll, you just stepped into Hallmark.
You stepped into Hallmark, yes.
And so if you want that experience.
Yes. And everybody comes for that. I mean, everybody comes for that.
I guess here's a question for you.
Sure.
Is there any, to revamp and redo this, do you see any potential benefit in us bringing in a part-time, a person that would come in as a consultant to help drive the strategy?
No, I've looked into that. Yeah, I have looked into that. It's commercialized. I don't want commercialized for Salado. When we do it because of our love for Salado. We know what Salado has. We know the stories behind Salado. We know what brings Salado. And when we have used, and when we look at doing marketing, that we do base that on what's working and what's not working content. And history, back to Jeff's, history brings that here. The stories, the old stories, brings that here. When we go look at our research to find out how many impressions, or if it's our local followers or if it's non-followers, if we're connecting with them, we do that, and we've done a really great job with that. It's because our stories are touching people, and that's what we do. If we had somebody outside of that, it's too expensive. They're not going to Melanie does such a beautiful job. And you're not going to have a Melanie here who cares about Salado to do that. And you're not going to be able to afford it in the budget either, for that matter. And that's the beauty of us, is that it's not even about us. It's about the town itself. So ideally, when we are going out there and talking to our businesses and we're sharing that, we get to share that story. And that's everything in marketing that we've been learning. We've been doing, and we talk about with our peers in tourism, and that's what we're trying to do. We haven't been able to do that the last 2 years, and we're moving forward, and that we have that, and what we have started doing has done very well with it. And I can show you. I've been showing you all that recently in our reports as well too.
When people stay at local bed and breakfasts or hotels, do they give us feedback on what brought them to Salado? Do we have some, especially around if it's a particular event or an advertisement they saw? I mean, I know when I travel, I get bombarded with those all the time. Why are you here? Why did you come to Memphis?
Yeah, we ask all the time.
And what is that? Do you get good information from that? Is it helpful, or is it? What would be a takeaway that you would see from the?
So word of the day is it's a charming, quaint town, and it feels like home and puts memories here. Everybody has talked about stories. We've met some wonderful people that come every year because maybe 50 years ago they got married or they got engaged here, and they experienced something in Salado they came back for the memories. And those are the stories that we hear all the time.
Besides having a wonderful time and recreating experiences, are there other incentives that you see other cities work or provide that say, hey, we've got some Salado bucks for you to come down, and here's $20 to spend on our food or our clothing, that type of thing. Are those things effective? Are they?
Well, that would be probably a chamber question, because that's going to be chamber. I'm putting heads in beds, and so you're kind of getting closer to the chamber side of that, and that those businesses could tell you what works in that and on that side of things. Now, I have asked any of my hotels as well as businesses, and that's where I'm working on the collaboration, is if they have something that they would like to give to a guest, a certain group that comes in and they'd like to give, like Katie's been really good about giving beer tabs and stuff like that as well, and those are things that we have been looking at offering to our guests too. Our own, even in April when we have the group that they come, this is their 46th year that they've come, and they bring their cars here.
The Packards.
The Packard groups, thank you.
Gina, excuse me, not Gina, Deanne, do you have the opportunity to visit with the other people in similar positions with the other communities around here and share information on a regular basis, which is effective for them, and or not? Do you do that?
I haven't been able, a few times we've had a class, I've been able to go, but no, normally I'm at the office.
Do you have time to do that moving forward?
Yes, moving forward, we'll be able to do that. My idea behind all of that is that there would not be anybody at the visitor center if we're out of the office. And so I'm working on a volunteer program that will fit the volunteers to handle that aspect of it so that we can be out during the week and visiting and
So that you can do
collaborating.
that.
Correct.
Okay, thank you.
Any other questions before we move on? I think you wore them out. No more questions. Let me just kind of summarize. I think more for us on the board, with John on the next step. So with the hotel motel plan, obviously this budget was originally set. I think we were going to get into the hot fund balance by about $151,000, and then our finance committee came back and asked for additional work to be done. We feel comfortable overspending, so we didn't have that much of a reserve. We also had, and so they've done that. Now the variance or the overspend is about $157,000. And when I looked at this information, that takes our reserve from a little over $410,000 down to about $214,000. So we also are learning that to figure out. I don't know if anybody knows that about what we're talking about. Use about $56,800 according to the report here. And hot fund, additional hot fund over what we're pulling in on an annualized basis. So that will take our hot fund balance down to about, if we stick with the $157,000 overspend, that'll take our, at the end of next year, that'll take our hot fund balance down to about $232,000, which could be fine, but still we've got a reserve. The question I think for the board to ask is, as we look to be more effective with the use of our hot funds, and as we look ahead and hoping that some of the investments that we're making, will that generate more hot fund tax so that we don't have to deficit spend in future years? And I think we're probably a couple years away from that. If there is a concern still among the board, and I know we talked about it in the finance committee, about, well, do we overspend by maybe only $100,000 versus what they currently have in the budget? That would necessitate cutting more expenses. One of the big items we got in here is the visitor information building. That's $60,000. We all kind of realize how important doing something on the north end is the bathrooms and visitors bureau. So I would ask everybody to kind of think about that. Are you comfortable with where this is at? Do you need to cut a little bit more? And do you have any concerns about the spending on the visitors bureau and why it's all but not that I have a strong opinion one way or another. That's just a question.
I know you guys have been looking at that, and I have done some research, and there are grants out there for those things, and I think that would be a great avenue if you're trying to decide if you're going to spend out a hot tax or not. But so there are avenues for that in grants that we can look at that may either pay all of it or may even pay just a portion of it, so that you don't have to take out of it. And if that's something that you're interested in, we can definitely look forward into doing that.
Well, I think my take, we kind of have one, because this is obviously, Jeff, I think you just missed it, because what she was saying, the bathrooms, there are grants out there that we should be applying for to try to fund bathrooms before we just take it out of the hot bed. So So I mean, that's
I think that way you can keep Salado out there and keep promoting Salado, and then in the aspect of it, we can look and see what else is out there so that you're not always just spending hot funds until we get more readily available after the agreement.
But in the
Moving forward,
interim,
yes.
it's kind of like, oh, agreed, but I mean, but then on the other token, if we don't do something about bringing more heads and putting more heads in bed and doing that,
You're going to get
which
lost
one,
in there.
we're gonna be completely out of money here.
Correct.
And I'm back to Mayor Ingram here. We have got to figure out, it feels like we're throwing all this money out there, but if we find out in Q1 that this Dallas thing for the morning news, whatever we're spending about $6,000 on, is not effective, but if we don't have a way to measure the effectiveness, then after Q1, if it's not effective or halfway through the year, cut it.
Absolutely, and that's what we would. That's what we do as well. Correct.
We have to be able to sit down here at the end of Q1 and Q2 and be, this was effective, this was not, because I don't think we're going to put that many more heads in bed to offset. We're going to be doing cuts somewhere along the line, and next year at this
Maybe
time,
so.
we're going to
Correct.
have to know what needs to be
Absolutely
cut, what
agree.
what's more effective.
I agree.
We haven't spent anything. We've thrown a lot of money out there, and I'm okay doing that for a while to kickstart it. Get
Just
the
see what's
catalyst.
working and what's not. Exactly.
But I'm still back to your point. What is effective? How do we know it? And we're going to sit here in a quarter and then another 6 months and sit down and be like, if we need to cut bait sooner on something, I'd rather cut it.
Yeah, absolutely. And that was our goal too, just so that you know, because we do measure that as well on our side to make sure. Correct.
I mean, right now in the interim, I feel like we have bathrooms in Pace Park that there's no one knows they're there because there's no signage.
Right.
And that.
But if I may say something on that, you also are looking at a bigger town that has more hotel lodging, that also doesn't have a hotel agreement that they're paying on right now, and they probably have more dollars to spend towards all of that. So, and Fredericksburg also years ago patterned after Salado, so they became famous because of us. And they patterned after us. We just, a few years ago, we've just kind of been lagging in that, but that's where we're here for today. And the other thing to remember too is right now we currently have 224 rooms. So we may not have a big cap of $1 million a year because we have so many rooms. We are getting a few more of the short-term rentals that are starting to come on board who would like to, we're putting them in with the hospitality side as well too. So that'll give you a few more rooms, give you a little bit more. But in the meantime, once that, we have an agreement that's kind of soaking up the funds, but we can still do great things, and we are still doing great things moving forward. We just got to adjust that. But if we spend it all, that's kind of where my thoughts were too. If you're spending it in the budget, then what do you have for the next at least 5 years? Because that agreement is good for another 8 years, 7 years. 7 years. This is our second year, correct.
So I'm fine with the conversation that says we want to make sure that the advertising and marketing we're doing is effective. That's always the great conversation to have, right? And it's always, I think, a difficult thing to get a very causal relationship between I spent this money, therefore this many people came. That's always a problem with marketing, always.
Sure.
And there's no way around that. I would say, yes, I think the expense for a bathroom on Main Street is a larger item in this budget. But if you compare us to the cities that are about getting people here and spending their money on Main Street, we have an infrastructure issue if you compare us to cities that are focused on those types of things. And this is not just a hot tax, we're funding it with hot tax, but this is a sales tax thing as well. Because the last thing you want to do when all the people come into our town and they start walking up and down the street, and we've got the strolls and the jingle walks and all those things, the last thing you want them to do is, I need to go to the bathroom, let me go in my car, go to McDonald's. Well, I'm in my car, I'm just going to leave. That's horrible.
I haven't heard any of that before. I mean, the stroll is so positive, and there's a restroom also in the museum that they utilize.
This request actually came from the businesses.
Okay, well,
they basically said, we've been good stewards, but we can't have all these people running through our bathroom. We're not set up to have a public bathroom in any of the businesses here. It's in the back, it's private, it's where I keep my inventory. That's where this came from.
Sure.
And the people whose money I want is like my mom. not so great at walking, but she's got a big fat wallet. And I want her walking up and down these streets, and when she can go to the bathroom, they're close to her.
Right.
And she can go, and she can spend her money, keep on spending her money. That's
Right.
exactly.
And I just think too, to remember that too with tourism, and that goes part with your tourism, is tourism does bring economic and development here to Salado, sales tax. So it's not just heads and beds, but we got to stay strong in tourism in order for the rest of that to happen too. And then if the grants are available,
And if the grants are
then
available,
we definitely
fine.
take a look at that.
I think we need to start pedaling quickly on the grant.
Sure.
Find out if there's a grant out there and what
Sure.
the time is to qualify
There's
for
several.
it and apply for it and it's to be issued. If it's a year away, I'm like, why would you not spend the money in the hot tax? I understand the issue. We want to make sure we don't get too far ahead of ourselves here. But it's been a gap we have on Main Street for a long time. Talk to any businesses, they'll all tell you this. And yes, Pace Park is way over there. I don't think you're going to find any tourists going there or folks shopping go there. But the one in that's down at the museum, that's fine. This part of town isn't covered. It just isn't.
And if you don't mind giving me a copy of your plan so I can see what your kiosk looks like that you're looking at, so I can get a cost of that and then the cost of your build, then I can look at that as we're doing looking at the grants too. Yeah, perfect. Yeah, perfect.
I think no one disagrees. I think
Yep,
on either
absolutely.
side, what Jeff is saying,
Yep.
Amber's what you're saying. From a effectiveness standpoint, it would be good if we can get a grant.
Sure.
You better use that money than our
Yes,
own money.
right.
But
I just wanted to let you know that's available out there, just so that you know as well too.
totally agree with that. Okay. So those some things for the board to go through on just how you feel about where this budget is likely, whether we need to send anything back or not. Obviously, it takes the bite out of the reserve, a pretty significant bite out of the reserve. So that's why I'm offering up that question to you all to think about as we go through the next week. Talking about it Thursday. And that's really all I had. Is there anything else? Appreciate all the discussion.
I did have a question. I was intrigued to see a Barrow ad on TV the other day. A Barrow ad on TV, advertising Barrow. And I think everything we're doing here is sort of media related, social related. Is there any effectiveness of ads on television? Is it too much of an issue to find the right people at the right time? Are they too expensive? Are they something we should consider, or they just don't match the type of things we're trying to do versus a cost perspective?
So for cost perspective, those are the reason that you see the Google Analytics, the retargeting, the Meta for right now. And then as we build and we put more in there, then we can look at advertising for TV, radio, all of that is very expensive.
I figured it was.
And you want to utilize that for a good length of time. You don't want to do it just for a month here or a month there, because then it's not really getting its dollars use out of it.
And only senior citizens like John watch television anyway, so. Okay.
And it's where you put those TV ads too.
Correct, it is. You know, and the bonus to that too is we are growing with our chamber. We're getting very close working with our chamber, and so that's going to also help too, so that we can benefit. You know, we've always been very close with our chamber, but now we'll actually be able to work with the chamber and utilize that. And so I think that's going to. We've got some great things coming on board. Yeah, you're welcome.
Okay, I'll look to the board one more time. Any other final comments before we adjourn? Write that down, John. And then, do you have a preference?
For what? Meeting when?
Finance committee meeting next Monday.
That would be the 3rd.
Or which day can you do?
I can do the afternoon of the 3rd, and I can do the afternoon of the 5th. So that's Monday and Wednesday. Mornings are tough for me. That's challenge.
So to narrow it down, Monday, Wednesday, afternoon.
Preferably Monday, if you can do it Monday. Afternoon. Okay. All right. Make a motion to adjourn.
Second? All right. All those in favor?
Aye.
All right. We are adjourned. Thank you.